Sure. The Briggs Initiative became Proposition 6 in 1978. And I had just started in politics. I had started working for the company I became a partner in and was there for 27 years, called the Dolphin Group. We were working for George Deukmejian, who was a state senator from Long Beach, who was running for Attorney General that year and became governor in '82. And I was his deputy campaign manager. I'd pick him up every morning, and my being gay and him running for Attorney General just didn't quite fit. And the Briggs Initiative was on the ballot that year. And so when that started to fester, I'd worked in politics in Illinois, Colorado, where I went to college, and so I had somewhat of a background in it, even though I was only 26. But I knew at that point, when that qualified for the ballot, Democrats were opposed to it. It would ban gay teachers in California, which would create witch hunts. So if a student was unhappy with his teacher because he or she got a bad grade, could just turn that teacher in and say gay or lesbian, and there'd be a hearing and all. It was just a terrible, terrible law. I was involved at that time in the Los Angeles County Young Republicans, and Ron McDonald was the president of the County Young Republicans. I was a vice president, I think, and so he and I conspired to get the board to vote to oppose the Briggs Initiative. And there was a big fundraiser being held in Beverly Hills at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, a very fancy hotel where Pretty Woman was made, and it was to raise money to oppose the Briggs Initiative. And the featured speaker was Senator George McGovern, who'd been the Democratic nominee for president, anti-war in 1972 against Richard Nixon. He got clobbered, but he's speaking at this thing. So I coordinated with Ron McDonald to get the Los Angeles County Young Republicans to be a sponsor of that event, to use their name. I said I would pony up the $100, and they would, but it wouldn't be under my name. Obviously, I was scared to death, but it would be the Los Angeles County Young Republicans. And George McGovern from the podium goes, "This is great to be here today, and this is great that we've got people like Jane Fonda and Tom Hayden and the Los Angeles County Young Republicans." Well, you could have heard a pin drop. And I went to David Mixner and Peter Scott, who were managing that campaign, and offered my services to them and said, anything I can do to help. Behind the scenes, I don't want to be out front. Also working on this Republican campaign for Attorney General. Get a little choked up here, which I hadn't expected, but I had retired in 2004, 53 years old at the time, and then became 54, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then the Boom Boom Room, which had always been rumored to be for sale, and it was sold, and it's going to close, and never happened. And then finally, it sold in 2006 or 5, I think, in the fall of 2005. And this multi-billionaire bought it. The Boom Boom Room is below a 23-room hotel. The rooms are tiny, but right on the ocean, beautiful views and everything from many of them. And so they were going to convert this to this boutique hotel. And so I thought, they're going to close our bar. And that's the epicenter of Laguna. And that's what brought so many people here. It brought me here in 1973, and all these people from all over the world. I had many friends who went through the whole AIDS crisis. Suddenly this bar is going to vanish, and it's going to be just another boutique hotel. So I spent 27 years in politics doing a lot of real estate work, a lot of entitlement work. A lot easier to stop a project than to get a project approved. I decided now I'm going to roll up my sleeves and get involved here. And so I talked to everybody in town who would meet with me, every council member, planning commissioner, LGBT people, the ASF, AIDS Service Foundation, which was kind of the main organization in town because that was, still doing things from the AIDS crisis. Anyway, then I figured, well, nobody else is going to do it. I'll do it. And that meant me coming out publicly, because if a 54-year-old or 6-year-old is trying to save a gay bar, it's pretty obvious. So I had to give it a lot of thought, and I'd been out to my family, friends, work, and all that, but not publicly. I bit the bullet and figured, okay, I'm going to do this. And so I launched the effort. A very good friend of mine who good with websites, put this great Save the Boom website together, and I had announced I was going to raise $100,000 to fight this multi-billionaire. It just kind of blossomed. So big mouth over here, I announced to the press that I'm going to get 5,000 signatures, all in Laguna Beach, to show the support the community has for this. And the other half of that was not just to save this bar, was to kind of show ourselves to the Laguna Beach community, because the gay community here had been pretty much invisible. You know, people would go by the Boom Boom Room, a lot of high school students. I had fag yelled at me many times just walking down Coast Highway. So people knew about it, but it was never in the newspaper. It was just very underground. And we started the petition drive, and a friend of mine who is a documentary filmmaker who loves Laguna, he said, I want to come every moment I can. Let me know when you're doing anything. So he came down here. We went to every grocery store in town. We first started at Ralph's, and we had a petition table set up. The Lane twins, who were these actor models from LA, both very cute and outgoing, they came and they had these yellow Save the Boom shirts designed, and you know, they cut the sleeves off and they're out there just, the signatures were pouring in. LA Times sent a reporter down, and it was this guy David Kelly. He was from Riverside, and he calls me up one day and said, yeah, I've been assigned to cover this. I guess I got to come to Laguna. Well, you know, I looked him up, and he'd been an international bureau chief in Israel and the Middle East and all over the world. This very prominent journalist is coming to Laguna Beach to cover the closing of a gay bar, and he was not happy about it. And then we went to the Boom, and he said, I can really only stay 15 or 20 minutes. I just want to get a feel for it. And we went on Wednesday night, which was, they had a drag show, and it was very mixed on the drag show in Laguna. Everybody would come out. It was very fun. Not a lot to do, of course, on Wednesday night. So he went there, and he ended up closing the place at 2. He left, had a great time, and he got it. And he figured out, what this bar was all about and why it was so important. Beautiful story. And then he was the one that discovered that the year extension was happening. So we get another story, and picture of me taken by my front door, and so suddenly I'm out. And it was an incredible experience. I met all these people. I became much more comfortable in my own skin. I was able to channel all that anger and fear and everything I had into a more positive direction to help other people. Because at that point, I'm 100% fine. I'm kind of proud. I love the press coverage. I love the whole thing. And again, this was bent up in me for so long. To suddenly be able to be free was just very, very wonderful. Well, one thing they can do is read. I've got a couple books out. Get my plug in. One's called World's Greatest Crasher, which is a memoir, talks about some of my crashing escapades. It's mostly about my life and coming out, and saving the boom is a big part of that. And the other one is called Fred Who, which was a memoir I wrote with Steve Pfeiffer, who I grew up with, who's a very accomplished writer, and that's deals with my whole life and coming out and a lot of Laguna activities and everything. But there's so much there. The libraries, the Orange County Library, the Laguna Beach Library has a lot of information there, certainly online. The old SaveTheBoom.com website is up, but it's a very important thing to preserve the history.